For 200,000 years, humans were guests on this planet. We moved where the herds moved. We ate what the seasons offered. We were hunter-gatherers, slaves to the geography of luck. But around 12,000 years ago, everything changed. It didn't happen in one place, and it didn't happen overnight. It was a slow-motion explosion that we call the Neolithic Revolution. How did we go from wandering bands of 20 people to cities of thousands? It started with a single realization. We didn't have to find food, we could make it. Today, we explore the secret history of the first farmers. From the banks of the Ganges to the mountains of Mexico, this is how we stopped running and started growing. In the Middle East, between the Tigris and Euphrates, humans found wild emmer wheat and barley. They noticed that where they dropped seeds, plants grew back the next year. They began selecting, choosing the biggest seeds to replant. This was the first genetic engineering. In ancient India, the story is unique. While they grew wheat and barley in the West, influenced by the Middle East, the heart of Indian agriculture was rice and millets. In the Ganges Valley, early Indians domesticated Oriza nivara, a wild rice. They mastered the monsoon cycle, learning to plant as the rains came. They also domesticated legumes, dal, and cotton. India was the world's first textile superpower, growing the clothes that would eventually dress the world. China had two separate revolutions. In the north, along the Yellow River, it was too dry for rice, so they grew millet, a hardy yellow grain. In the south, along the Yangtze, they created the wetland rice system. This required massive cooperation to build dikes and canals, forcing people to work together in larger groups than ever before. In the Sahel region of Africa, ancient farmers domesticated sorghum and pearl millet. These crops could survive heat that would kill wheat. In Ethiopia, they grew teff and coffee. Africa's contribution was resilience, growing food in landscapes where water was a luxury. Halfway across the world, without any contact with Asia or Europe, the people of the Americas pulled off a miracle. They turned a tiny, useless wild grass called teosinte into maize, corn. They invented companion planting called the Three Sisters. Corn provided a pole for beans to climb. Beans added nitrogen to the soil. Three squash spread across the ground, its big leaves acting as a living mulch to keep the soil moist. Agriculture didn't just change our diet, it changed our souls. When you are a hunter, your wealth is what you can carry. When you are a farmer, your wealth is the land. You cannot move a wheat field. This led to sedentism, staying in one place. The need for labor. You can't harvest 10 acres of grain alone. You need neighbors, you need cousins. Families grew larger because more children meant more hands in the field. The grain store, the first bank. For the first time, humans had a surplus. If you grow more than you eat, you need a place to hide it. We built granaries. But a granary needs a guard. Suddenly, we needed a government and soldiers to protect our food from wandering tribes who were still hunting. But no civilization had everything. Early groups began to trade genetic packages. A village with high-quality salt would trade it for a bag of new seed from a distant valley. This is how wheat moved from Mesopotamia to China and how rice moved from Asia to the West. This exchange created the first markets. When you met to trade seeds, you also traded stories, languages, and religions. Agriculture was the internet of the ancient world. It connected us through our stomachs. While the seed revolution gave us the calories to stay in one place, it was a second parallel revolution that gave us the power to build civilizations, the domestication of animals. Humans didn't just tame animals, we entered into a biological contract with them. In exchange for protection and food, these species surrendered their wildness to become our silent partners. But this partnership didn't look the same everywhere. It was dictated by the landscape. In the Middle East, around 10,000 years ago, we saw the first prey pathway. Hunter-gatherers realized that chasing wild goats and sheep was inefficient. Instead, they began to cull the aggressive males and protect the breeding females from predators. Slowly, the wild, nervous instincts of the mouflon sheep were bred out. They became smaller, more docile, and eventually they provided us with something the wild versions never could: a surplus of wool and milk. Travel east to ancient India, and the story shifts to power. Around 7,000 years ago, in places like Mergar, humans domesticated the zebu. Unlike the cattle of Europe, the zebu was a heat survivor, sporting a hump to store fat and extra skin to dissipate warmth. But the real engine of the Indian farm was the water buffalo. This was the tank of the ancient world. Their incredible strength allowed humans to plow the heavy, clay-rich soils of the river valleys that were once impossible to farm. Because of the buffalo and the zebu, India could support some of the densest populations in the ancient world. In China, the partnership was about efficiency. The pig was domesticated 9,000 years ago as the ultimate recycler, turning village waste into high-quality protein. In the Americas, the challenge was different. There were no horses or cows. In the Andes, the llama and alpaca became the only pack animals of the New World. They couldn't pull a heavy plow, which is why American civilizations relied on human labor and ingenious terrace farming rather than animal-driven machinery. And in Africa, the donkey changed the world of trade. Domesticated in the northeast around 5,000 years ago, the donkey was the first long-haul trucker. They could carry heavy loads across arid terrain, connecting isolated farming villages and allowing for the first major exchange of crops and ideas across the continent. This wasn't just about meat. Animals provided fertilizer, the black gold that kept the soil from dying after years of harvests. They provided traction, the muscle to move stones for temples and plows for fields. Most importantly, they changed our biology. In Europe and parts of Africa and India, humans evolved the ability to digest lactose into adulthood, a genetic mutation triggered specifically by our proximity to dairy herds. We didn't just tame them, we grew together. Our survival became their survival, and their strength became our civilization.